Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. It's lovely to see such a nice crowd. Paul, thanks for those gracious words. I'm tempted to say a lot of things that aren't in the script, but I'm going to resist that temptation. I will just say thank you, Paul and Mary and other colleagues, for planning a really lovely worship service with some readings that, as I'm sure you know, are very meaningful to me. Although it is an honor to be your baccalaureate speaker today, I want you to know, those of you who don't know, that I didn't ask for this role. In a moment of weakness many months ago, I allowed some of my colleagues to persuade me that this would be a fine thing for me to do in the final days of my presidency. Whether this was a wise decision or not, you will know shortly. For my theme, I have selected gratitude. As many of you know, I have long been an advocate for the virtue of gratitude. Several years ago, a colleague, who's here today, gave me a quotation on gratitude by the great Roman orator, author, and statesman Marcus Tullius Cicero, who vainly defended the Roman Republic in the tumultuous civil wars that ultimately destroyed it in the last days of the 1st century BC. Although a respected member of Roman society and a prolific author, Cicero had a challenging life that ultimately ended in his violent death at the hands of political enemies. And yet he professed his devotion to gratitude as not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. It is, I think, a noble sentiment and a habit of mind worth cultivating. As many of you know, I have made the Cicero quotation a permanent element of my email signature line. In preparing for this talk, with the help of Dr. Rob Seasongood and sophomore Connor McLaughlin, I found the original source for the quotation in the Loeb Classical Library, in our library, published by Harvard University Press. Dr. Seasongood gave me the citation. Connor helped me find the actual book when it was below my sight level. I appreciated that. The oration in which Cicero extols the virtue of gratitude appears in his passionate defense of a friend who is on trial in a time of great political turmoil. Here's a portion of N.H. Watts's translation of the relevant passage. Quoting, "For indeed, while I would fain have some tincture of all the virtues, there is no quality I would sooner have than gratitude. For gratitude not merely stands alone at the head of all the virtues, but is even mother of the rest. Who is there of us that has received an enlightened upbringing, who does not constantly ponder with grateful recollection upon those who had the care of him, upon his tutors and teachers, and even upon the inanimate scenes of his rearing and schooling?" Cicero goes on to describe gratitude and the obligations that one should recognize as a result to be essentially human, and conversely, ingratitude to be that which lowers one to the level of beasts. Clearly, Cicero had strong opinions on the subject. On commencement weekend, which is the culmination of so much effort, of so many gifts shared, of so many sacrifices, so many hopes and dreams pursued, and so many realized, it seems fitting to spend a few moments contemplating this virtue of gratitude. Further, I hope to cast some light on Cicero's claim that gratitude is the parent, or better, mother, of all the other virtues. First, it might be worthwhile to recall the meaning of the word virtue. As you probably know, it comes from Latin, the Latin word virtus, meaning strength, manliness, virtue, from vir, meaning man or virile. Now, we could very likely have a lively discussion about the etymological association between virtue and manliness, but I fear it would lead us astray. In fact, I had a long digression on it. Mary told me to cut it, so I'm going to spare you that. For the moment, I trust we can all agree that women are as capable of virtuous behavior as men are, and equally capable of vicious behavior. The principal point of this exercise in etymology is simply to remind us that virtue suggests strength directed to good purpose. To be virtuous is to be strong. There's a well-established principle in ethics and morality that virtue leads to happiness. Indeed, this principle is a cornerstone of most religious teaching. The language of religion repeatedly returns to ideals of life fully lived and the path to lasting happiness, not just in some future life, but in this life as well. As C.S. Lewis so aptly put it, and I quote, "Moral rules are directions for running the human machine. Every moral rule is there to prevent a breakdown or a strain or a friction in the running of that machine," end quote. The Catechism of the Catholic Church defines a virtue as, quote, "an habitual and firm disposition to do the good. The virtuous person tends toward the good with all his or her sensory and spiritual powers. He or she pursues the good and chooses it in concrete actions." Traditionally, as you probably know, there are four so-called cardinal virtues: prudence, justice, temperance, and fortitude. The term cardinal, by the way, comes from the Latin word that means a hinge. Thus, it is on these virtues that all others hinge or turn. In the Christian tradition, there are three theological virtues, so-called: those directly related to the love of God for humanity and the right relationship between creatures and their Creator and among themselves. These are, of course, the familiar ones: faith, hope, and charity. They are, as the Catechism puts it, quoting, "the foundation of Christian moral activity. They animate it and give it its special character." In recent years, there's been growing interest among psychologists in gratitude and related questions about human happiness. It was interesting to me to note that in my cursory examination of this growing literature, that gratitude is defined as an emotion, not a virtue, that most people feel frequently and strongly. In 2004, the Gallup organization conducted a telephone poll of some 1,000 people and discovered that 67% reported feeling grateful all of the time, and 60% said this made them very happy. I have to wonder about that 7%. Furthermore, the prevalence of gratitude is not limited to Western countries, but appears throughout the world. Just one example. In Japanese language, there is a term, on, spelled O-N, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. The meaning of on often includes a sense of gratitude combined with a desire to repay others for what we have been given. It's not just that we feel grateful or that we express our gratitude, but that we actually experience a sincere desire to give something back. Note in this description the similarity to Cicero's description and the essential link between gratitude and recognizing an obligation to all those who have contributed to our well-being. Gratitude has also been a focus of attention in the context of disasters, with many people reporting increased gratitude and appreciation of life following exposure, for example, to the 9/11 terrorist attacks. These reports reminded me of the late, great Southern writer Walker Percy, another one of my favorites, and his theory about hurricanes, which Walter Isaacson summarized recently in an essay on the long-term impact of Hurricane Katrina on New Orleans. Percy believes, somewhat paradoxically, that people are happier in disaster than in normal everyday life. Percy's diagnosis, Isaacson writes, was that when we are mired in the everydayness of ordinary life, we are susceptible to what Percy called the malaise, a free-floating despair associated with the feeling that you're not a part of the world or connected to the people in it. You're alienated, detached. But, continuing to quote, when a hurricane is about to hit, we no longer feel uncertain about our role in the world. Everyone is focused, connected, engaged. We know what we're supposed to do, and we do it. Percy's theory of happiness, of hurricanes, provides the key to Cicero's claim that gratitude is the mother of all virtues. Properly understood, gratitude is the fruit of recognizing our actual situation, or one might say, of living in the truth, of refusing to be seduced by illusions. It starts with remembering the fundamental reality of the human condition, which we all share. We are born through the actions of others. We emerge naked and needy from our first breath. If we're fortunate, someone cleans us, feeds us, clothes us, gives us shelter, and provides for the many other physical needs that all humans possess. If we're very fortunate, we have loving parents or caring others who provide another rich layer of gifts, loving us, teaching us, correcting us, and guiding us toward adulthood. All of these things are gifts. We may think we're entitled to them, but certainly there are no guarantees, and there are far, far too many individuals in our world today who don't even have their basic physical needs met, much less their emotional and spiritual ones. The truth should be obvious that we are born needy and dependent. Our success in life certainly requires us to work and help ourselves, but all of us benefit from the gifts of others. So gratitude would seem to be the very foundation for a life of truth, and thus an essential condition for an enduring and genuine happiness. As noted in a very good review essay in the January 2007 issue of The Psychologist, gratitude has occupied a central position in religious and philosophical teachings throughout history. Indeed, gratitude has been a fundamental focus of expressing the relationship between believers and God in all religious traditions. In a 2012 essay, Dr. Robert Emmons, a psychology professor at the University of California, Davis, examined the same Cicero quote that is our focus today. Emmons is perhaps the world's leading authority on the scientific study of gratitude and a leader in the growing field of what's called positive psychology. The author of numerous books and an ongoing research project on gratitude, Emmons cautions that an emerging happiness industry appears to be alive and flourishing in America. He worries that in modern times, gratitude has become untethered from its moral moorings to the detriment of us all. He writes, when Cicero stated that gratitude was the queen of the virtues, it gets variously translated, he most assuredly did not mean that gratitude was merely a stepping stone toward personal happiness. Gratitude is a morally complex disposition, and reducing this virtue to a technique or strategy to improve one's mood is to do it an injustice. He notes further that memory is essential to gratitude. And I quote again, if there is a crisis of gratitude in contemporary life, as some have claimed, it is because we are collectively forgetful. We have lost a strong sense of gratitude about the freedoms we enjoy, a lack of gratitude toward those who lost their lives in the fight for freedom, and a lack of gratitude for all the material advantages we have. On the other hand, grateful people draw upon positive memories of being the recipients of benevolence, a giftedness that is neither earned nor deserved. End quote. The potentially toxic effect of gratitude, untethered from its moral moorings, to use Dr. Emmons' vivid phrase, was comically but profoundly portrayed in Flannery O'Connor's brilliant short story entitled Revelation. The principal character is a complacent and highly judgmental countrywoman named Mrs. Turpin, who finds herself in a cramped doctor's office with her obsequious husband, Claude, and a variety of others representing the range of social strata in her small Georgia town. She describes herself as, quote, a respectable, hard-working, church-going woman. Among the others in the room is a sullen young woman, clearly a college student, who is there with her mother and is seething at every word that the loquacious Mrs. Turpin utters. Mrs. Turpin and the angry young woman's mother have been discussing gratitude. The mother observes, I think the worst thing in the world is an ungrateful person. I grew up in Georgia, so I know how these people talk. To have everything and not appreciate it. I know a girl who has parents who would give her anything, but who can never say a kind word to anyone, who never smiles, and who just criticizes and complains all day long. Soon thereafter, Mrs. Turpin launches into an ecstatic monologue of self-congratulation. If it's one thing I am, Mrs. Turpin said with feeling, it's grateful. When I think all who I could have been besides myself and what all I got, a little of everything and a good disposition besides, I just feel like shouting, thank you, Jesus, for making everything the way it is. It could have been different. For one thing, somebody else could have got Claude. At the thought of this, she was flooded with gratitude, and a terrible pang of joy ran through her. Oh, thank you, Jesus, Jesus, thank you, she cried aloud. The next moment, in a masterful stroke of condensed narrative, O'Connor describes the angry young woman's book, ironically entitled Human Development, striking Mrs. Turpin directly over her left eye and the young woman crashing across the coffee table, howling and sinking her fingers into Mrs. Turpin's soft, fleshy neck. In the ensuing chaos, Mrs. Turpin and the girl have a brief encounter that is a shocking epiphany for Mrs. Turpin when the girl locks eyes with the older woman and says, "Go back to hell where you came from, you old warthog." Soon thereafter, the girl is sedated and carried out on a stretcher. Mrs. Turpin and her husband make their way back to their small, tidy farm where Mrs. Turpin visits the pig parlor. She enters into an angry and accusatory rant at God that culminates in a vision in which she sees all the folks she's considered social inferiors singing loudly and marching joyfully into heaven ahead of all those, quoting O'Connor, all those who, like herself and Claude, had always had a little of everything and the God-given wit to use it right. They were marching behind others with great dignity, accountable as they had always been for good order and common sense and respectable behavior. They alone were on key. Yet she could see by their shocked and altered faces that even their virtues were being burned away. O'Connor's vivid portrait of Ruby Turpin illustrates the potential for any virtue to be corrupted. Her gratitude is, of course, not gratitude at all. It does not reflect a just recognition of her true condition, and appears instead to be the principal symptom of a moral blindness that only a violent revelation could reveal. In short, Mrs. Turpin's gratitude has no connection to the complex moral and ethical web that Cicero envisioned and which Robert Emmons describes as the moral moorings of gratitude. It is a nice coincidence that the two core values inscribed on the Albright seal are veritas, or truth, and justitia, or justice. As an institution, we proclaim our commitment to truth and justice and work to instill in our students the same commitment. I hope that a very little reflection will confirm this for you, from caring and demanding teachers to coaches and advisors to mentors and friends. I also hope that it is now obvious that truth and justice are the indispensable linchpins of gratitude rightly understood, and that these two values provide the key to Cicero's claim that gratitude is the mother of all the other virtues. Unless we recognize our actual condition, the truth of what it means to be human, we cannot possibly experience genuine gratitude. And furthermore, if gratitude contains no element of obligation to others, it has come unhinged from its capacity to give birth to every other virtue. And so I pray that each of you already has a grateful heart, and that my ruminations today have been merely reminders of truth you already know well. As Samuel Johnson observed long ago, men are more frequently required to be reminded than informed. Some of us need reminding more often than others. So may God bless you and all those dear to you now and always. Thanks for your attention.